every now and then we rewrite the in-memory columns when they have too many invalidations. If you want to track how many times we're going to have to go to the buffer cache to get invalid rows, you want to look at $im. SMU is the space layer head, and it will tell you the number of current invalid rows and how many blocks those translate to in the buffer cache. And then Oracle's old stats had names that were based on whatever the development engineer particularly wanted to call them, with no particular order, layout, or rationale. And we have been trying hard since 12.102 to rework a lot of stats to have nice, well-regulated names so that you can use wildcarding on $systat. So you can look for you can look for imscan CU's percent, imscan bytes percent, or just imscan percent, or basically to make it easier to get all of the related stats from $systats much more simply. So what happens if I only had space in my in-memory store for half of my segment? So in-memory lets you prioritize. You can have your highest priority, medium priority. So we load all the high priority ones, and we get halfway through the medium ones, and we run out of space. So now we have a table that's half in memory and half not. What is it going to do? Well, the one thing it's not going to do is evict something else to make space. There's only manual eviction in the in-memory area. We make a cost-based decision on what to do with the bit that's not in memory. And there's an underscore parameter for it, which I can give you if you need it, which defaults to 80%. If it's 80% in memory, we will go to the buffer cache for the remaining 20%. If it's less than 80% loaded, we will go to direct read for the remaining percent that is not loaded. So now my partitioning. We talked about partitioning to be divide hot segments and cold segments because of the different way they respond to checkpointing. It's typical to say I only have space in my in-memory store for my very hot partitions, but I don't want the performance of my cold partitions to suddenly fall off a cliff when they're no longer in memory. How can I manage that transition of some part of the partition aging out of being in memory? Well, one of the features that came in 12c that I particularly like is partial indexing. Does anyone here use partial indexing? People familiar with partial indexing? Okay. Small number of people. How many people here have been to a Jonathan Lewis talk? Okay, few people. So we introduced this thing called partial indexing, which means you can define an index as existing but not built yet, depending on whether indexing is on or off for that particular partition. So I can define an index as indexing partial, and then when it's going to be aged out of my in-memory store, I do alter table modify partition indexing on. It will now kick off an index build of that partition. And when I see it's completed, I can do alter table modify partition no in memory. And what it's going to do then is it's going to create a hybrid plan, which I've seen some people call table expansion. The simplest form is it generates a union all. It generates a union all of table scans for the partitions which are in memory and index range scans for the partitions which are indexed. So you can get this whole system to automatically manage this transition from using in-memory to using indexes. Just make sure you do it this way round. If you do it the other way round, there will be a gap where things run slowly because the indexes won't have been built yet. So the way you use it is indexing full, or is the default, indexing partial, and then alter table, modify partition, indexing on off. They added some really fancy stuff of putting certain values in an index and certain values not in an index. It's far too, I think it's ridiculously complicated. I've never met anybody who uses it, but I'm sure they had fun implementing it. We don't have time to cover Exadata, and it looks like very few people are using Exadata. I'm here. If you want the Exadata part of this talk, come and find me. I've got my laptop. I will sit and go through the last section of this talk with you quite cheerfully. We can even go to the bar and have it over a beer.
Okay.
Can we have questions?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so a very short, very simple questions, two-part questions. The decision between buffered and directories, why it is it cannot be influenced easily on a SQL level. That's first part, and the second part is why I want it. It's
you can influence it in the query.
Okay, how? How?
Hint, star plus, opt param, underscore serial direct read equals true or false.
Okay, because I'm asking because it didn't work for me all the time.
Really? Can you send me an example that didn't?
Okay, I'll try. Yeah, and the second question is, in all those calculations, which path to choose between buffered / directories, there is no accounting for checkpoint. And I'm not talking about the checkpoint, I'm talking about the communication between processes. Like I've seen a situation where the statement keeps running, and the time it takes just to wait to reply that checkpoint is done, it's actually taking the most time. And there is no...
Do you have an SR for that?
Of course no.
I can file a bug for that. If you can give me like a trace that shows that happening, I can file a bug and I know the engineer to assign it to.
Take an e-business suite upgrade driver. They are doing it in the upgrade to R12. Okay, will do.
If it's in an email, I've got it at work and I will sit down and I will send it to the engineer who owns this.
Okay, I'll try. Thank you.